My name is Mara Bennett, and I was 34 when my family slid a payment across a Sunday dinner table and waited for me to make their plan work. The envelope was cream-colored, heavy enough to feel official, and placed beside my plate before I had even taken off my coat. My father set it there with one hand and kept the other wrapped around his glass of iced tea. My mother watched my face the way she always did when she had already decided what I should say. "It is only the final balance," Dad said. "We need it handled by Wednesday." I opened the envelope because that is what I had spent most of my life doing, opening things, fixing things, reading fine print, when everyone else was tired of the subject. Inside was an invoice from Pine Harbor Resort for $3,742.18. The reservation was for our annual family summer week. 12 people, 5 rooms, 2 boat rentals, a catered dinner for the last night. I had not agreed to pay for it. I had not even agreed to go for the full week. Still, my name was printed beneath the words "Final Payment Contact" across the table. My younger brother Owen shifted in his chair and looked down at his plate. My sister Tessa gave a little laugh that did not reach her eyes. "Mom said you were helping with the last part," she said. Mom nodded, as if we were all remembering the same conversation. "You said you could take care of your share. And you know how much this trip means to the kids. We have all been looking forward to it." There it was. The sentence that had followed me through years of family conflict. "You know how much this means to everyone else." Dad leaned back. "Your brother has had a slow month. Tessa has been paying for daycare. Your mom and I already covered the deposit. This is just the payment that keeps the reservation from falling apart. Just the payment." The whole table went quiet in that familiar way. They were not asking whether I could afford it. They were waiting to see whether I would be the difficult one, the ungrateful daughter, the sister who let everybody down because she wanted to talk about numbers at a family dinner. I worked in budget operations for a regional clinic network. My job was built around the kind of decisions people called small right before those decisions became expensive. I knew how fast a vague promise could turn into a recurring charge. I knew that an invoice was not a request for kindness. It was a record of who had been told to expect money. But I did not say any of that. I looked at the invoice again, at the date, at the reservation code, at my own email address, typed beneath the line for contact information. Then I folded the paper, slid it back into the envelope, and said, "I will read it tonight." Dad's jaw tightened. "There is nothing to read, Mara. It is a bill. There is always something to read," I said. Mom sighed, soft and disappointed. "Why do you make everything feel so formal?" I wanted to tell her that things only felt formal when they stopped being convenient. Instead, I picked up my napkin and laid it over my plate. "I am not saying no," I told them. "I am saying I need to understand what I am being asked to pay." Nobody answered. The food stayed on the table, going cold in the middle of a dinner that was supposed to be about family. That was the moment I understood this was not about a summer trip. It was about a role I had been playing for years, the person who caught every falling cost before anyone else had to feel it hit the ground. And they did not know that, after 6 years of being called reliable, I had kept every date, every transfer, every promise to pay me back, and every message that began with the words, "Can you just help us this once?" They thought I was taking an invoice home. What I was really taking home was the first proof that I had finally been written into one of their plans without my permission. I was not born the responsible one. Nobody is. You become that person by being praised every time you make a problem disappear. When I was 16, my parents called me mature because I never asked for much. When I was 22, they told relatives I was independent because I worked 2 jobs through college. and did not move back home. When I was 28, after my father had a stretch of unemployment, and my mother had started collecting overdue notices in a kitchen drawer, they called me a lifesaver because I sent money without asking too many questions. At the beginning, I was proud of it. The first payment I made for my family was $186.47 for the electric bill. Dad had been waiting on a check from a contractor. Mom was embarrassed, and I could hear it in the way she talked too quickly. I was 24, living in a studio apartment with a second-hand couch and a job that paid just enough to make me feel lucky. I transferred the money before I went to sleep. Dad paid me back 3 days later with a handwritten note in the envelope. "Thank you for helping us get through a tight week." That note mattered more to me than the money. It made the favor feel shared, temporary, seen. But the next time was a car repair for Owen, then a dental copay for Tessa, then a grocery order after Mom said she had been too proud to ask anybody, then a deposit when Dad's old pickup needed work, and he promised the client payment would cover it by Friday. Friday turned into next month. Next month turned into you know how things have been. I told myself that families went through seasons. I told myself I was lucky to be able to help. I told myself that love did not need a receipt. The trouble was that money was never the only thing I gave them. Every request came with a planning problem. Had to log in, call the company, move a transfer, read a policy, compare payment dates, ask questions nobody else wanted to ask. I became the person who knew which bills were due, which account had room, which late fee could be avoided, which promise was most likely to break first. That kind of unpaid labor is quiet. It does not look like labor while you are doing it. It looks like being the daughter who is good at details. My parents loved telling people that I was the practical one. They said it with affection, like it was a compliment. They did not see that practical had become another word for available. By the time I was 31, I had created a spreadsheet called Family Support. I did not make it to punish anyone. I made it because I had started to doubt my own memory. Mom would say that was only a few $100s, and I would feel unreasonable for remembering the number. Dad would say, "We have always paid you back," and I would wonder whether I was being too sensitive because some payments had come back in parts. Owen would say, "I thought Mom handled that," and Tessa would say, "I thought Dad had told you." So I started keeping the facts where nobody could soften them. Date, amount, reason, who asked, what they promised, what actually happened. At first, the spreadsheet had 8 rows. Then it had 17, then 31. I never sent it to anyone. I never threatened anyone with it. I did not sit at home counting reasons to be angry. I only wanted to make sure that when people said I was overreacting, I could check whether I was. By the time the Pine Harbor invoice landed in front of me, there were 46 rows, 46 small emergencies, 46 moments when I had been told the money would be returned, shared, settled, or remembered. And that Sunday, in the quiet after dinner, I opened my laptop and added row 47. Pine Harbor Resort, $3,742.18. Final payment requested at family dinner. Authorization, unclear. I stared at the final column for a long time. Then I typed the only accurate note I had. No agreement found. The next morning, I woke before my alarm because my mind was already running through numbers. That is another thing people do not understand about family financial pressure. It does not end when the conversation ends. It follows you into the shower, into the grocery store, into the half second before you answer a work email. You start making calculations before you have even decided whether you want to. Could I pay the invoice? Yes. Would paying it ruin me? No. Would paying it teach my family that they could list my name on anything, then call my hesitation selfish? Yes, that was the calculation I could not ignore anymore. I magically opened the spreadsheet and started at the first row. The electric bill, the car repair, the grocery order. I had highlighted every payment that had been described as urgent. There were 27 of them. I had added another color for payments that were supposed to be repaid. 21 had never been repaid in full. The total was not a shocking number. It was not the kind of number that belongs in a headline. It was $18,964.33 spread across 6 years. That was what made it worse. No single request had been outrageous enough to make me walk away. The pattern survived because it had been built out of ordinary things: a prescription, a repair, a birthday dinner, a hotel deposit, gas money, a school form, a phone bill, an appliance delivery, a ticket that would be paid back next Friday. It was not one disaster. It was a system. At 9:30, I called Pine Harbor Resort. A woman named Leah answered in a warm, practiced voice and asked for the reservation code. "I am listed as the final payment contact," I said. "I need to understand what that means." There was a pause while she checked the file. "The reservation was created by Diane Bennett," Leah said. "You are listed as the guest responsible for the remaining balance. Did I authorize that?" Another pause. This one was shorter. "I do not see a signed authorization from you. I see an email from the primary guest." My stomach dropped, but my voice stayed even. "Could you send me the email?" Leah explained that she could not disclose every part of the reservation, but because my email address had been added as the payment contact, she could forward the payment-related thread. 5 minutes later, it appeared in my inbox. The subject line was "Final Balance Plan." Mom had written it 3 weeks earlier. "Mara will cover the final amount. She always handles these things when the rest of us are stretched. Please keep her copied so she can pay it before the deadline." There was no question mark, no message to me, no request for permission. Just a sentence that turned my reliability into an agreement. I read it 3 times. Then I forwarded it to my personal folder and saved a PDF copy beside the spreadsheet. I did not cry. I did not call Mom. I did not type an angry response and delete it. I added a new column to the spreadsheet. What was said about me? For the Pine Harbor row, I wrote, "She always handles these things." Then I started reviewing messages from the last year. I found a text from Dad. "Can you float the insurance payment?" Just for a week. A message from Mom. "Do not tell Tessa I asked you. She feels bad already." A group chat note from Owen. "Mara has it. We are good." And an email I had forgotten about entirely. From the month Dad's truck broke down. "Put it on Mara's card for now. She will understand." That sentence sat on the screen like something sharp. She will understand. For years, I had thought understanding was the kindest thing about me. That morning, I saw how easily people had used it as a reason not to ask. By Monday afternoon, my phone had started to fill with messages. "Mom first. Did you talk to the resort? We need to settle this today." "Dad, please do not turn a simple payment into another one of your work projects." "Owen, hey, I know this is awkward. Can you just let me know what you are doing? The kids keep asking about the trip." "Tessa, I thought you were coming for days. Is this about that?" Nobody asked whether I had agreed to be put on the reservation. Nobody asked whether the amount worked for my budget. They asked the only question that mattered to them: what was I going to do for the plan they had already made? I went back to the original invitation in the family chat. Mom had posted a bright photo of Pine Harbor's dock in January with the words, "Summer week is happening." I had replied that I could probably take 2 days off in late July, but I could not commit to the full week because our clinic network was moving to a new billing system. I had added, "I can pay my own share once we know the cost." My own share, not the final balance. Not the balance left after everybody else had decided what they could afford. My cher. I printed the message and placed it next to the resort email. Then I opened a new workbook and made a clean version of the spreadsheet. No commentary, no sarcastic notes. No red font screaming at anyone, just categories and dates. I titled it, Family Payments and Repayment Status, 2020 to 2026. The columns were simple: date, request, amount paid, person who requested it, expected repayment date, actual repayment, outstanding balance. I added a final column only after thinking about it for almost an hour. Written record. That was where I linked the text message, email, bank transfer confirmation, or receipt that showed the payment had not come from my imagination. When I finished the first draft, I sat back and felt a strange kind of grief. The spreadsheet was not a weapon. It was a map of every time I had tried to be loved through usefulness. I knew my parents would say that families should not keep score. My mother had said that before, but nobody had minded keeping score when I was the one doing the paying. The score only became rude when the person who had carried it refused to carry it quietly. At 5 o'clock, Dad called. I let the phone ring once, twice, then answered. "Mara," he said, already impatient. "The resort needs the balance." I spoke to them, I said. His silence told me he had not expected that. "Then you know what needs to happen." I know Mom listed me as the final payment contact without asking. He exhaled through his nose. "That is not the point. It is the point to me. Your mother was trying to keep things organized by telling them I would pay. You were always going to help. That is what we all believed." I closed my eyes. There it was again, not what I had said. What they had believed they could expect. I said I would pay my own share. I told him. I did not say I would cover everyone else's balance. We are not talking about everyone else. We are talking about family. That is exactly what we are talking about. Dad went quiet. Then he said, more slowly, "You have changed." I looked at the spreadsheet on my desk. At 47 rows of proof that I had been changing for years, just not in a way he could see. "No," I said. "I have started writing things down." I did not send the spreadsheet that night. I wanted to. I had it open clean and organized, with every figure checked twice. But I knew that if I sent it while my heart was racing, I would spend the next day wondering whether I had done it to hurt someone. I wanted my first real no to be something I could stand behind when the room got loud. So I made dinner, took a walk around my block, and came home to a voicemail from Mom. Her voice was soft in the way it became when she wanted me to hear her as fragile. "Mara, please call me. Your father is upset. Owen is worried. We are all worried. I do not know why you are making this into such a big thing. The resort is holding the reservation until tomorrow morning. Please do not punish the children because you are unhappy with us." I listened to it twice. Then I wrote down the words, "Punish the children." It was a familiar family strategy. If I did not pay, I was not just declining an invoice. I was taking something from people who had nothing to do with the decision. My boundaries became everyone else's disappointment. Their choices became my responsibility. I called Mom back, but I did not argue. I am not punishing anyone. I said. I am declining a payment I did not authorize. You can afford it. That does not make it mine, after everything your father and I have done for you. The old guilt rose so quickly, I could almost feel it in my throat. Parents do not hand you an itemized bill for raising you. But mine had a way of making every past kindness feel like a balance they could collect whenever I stopped being useful. I am grateful for what you have done for me, I said. I am also allowed to decide what I pay for, Mom cried then, not loudly. A small, wounded sound. You are making me feel like a bad mother. I stared at the kitchen window. Across the street, a couple was walking a dog under the yellow light of a street lamp. Their life looked ordinary. Nobody was asking them to explain why a bill was not theirs. I am not calling you a bad mother, I said. I am asking you not to volunteer my money. She hung up. The next morning, Pine Harbor sent a final notice. The reservation would be adjusted if the balance was not paid by noon. Not cancelled, adjusted. The manager explained that the family could reduce the number of rooms, remove the boat rental, and revise the catering order. That mattered to me. It meant the story Dad had told about all the children losing everything was not true. There were choices. There had always been choices. They just involved somebody else carrying a cost instead of handing it to me. At 11:30, I sent one email to my parents, Owen and Tessa. Subject: Pine Harbor payment and future requests. The message was short. I will not be paying the $3,742.18 final balance for Pine Harbor Resort. I agreed to pay my personal share once the cost was confirmed. I did not agree to be listed as the final payment contact or to cover balances for other adults. The resort has confirmed that the reservation can be adjusted without canceling the trip. For clarity, I have attached a record of family payments I have made since 2020, including requests, amounts, and repayment status. I am not sending this to shame anyone. I am sending it because I need future requests to be specific, written, and voluntary. I will no longer approve payments made in my name without my consent. Mara. Then I attached the spreadsheet. My hand shook only once when I pressed send. After that, I sat still. The quiet did not last long. The first response came from Tessa. I did not know you paid for all of that. It was not an apology. Not yet. But it was the first honest sentence anyone had written to me in 2 days. Owen wrote next. Why are you sending everyone a private ledger? Dad replied before I could answer. This is exactly what I mean. Mara turns help into a performance. Mom added, you are embarrassing us. I read the messages in the order they appeared and realized something important. None of them disputed the numbers. Nobody said the payments had not happened. Nobody said Mom had not listed me as the contact. They only objected to the fact that I had made the pattern visible. I answered Owen privately first. I told him the ledger was not private because the requests had never been private. Everyone had known when I was asked. Everyone had known when I was expected to say yes. What had been private was the total cost of becoming the reliable one. He did not respond for 3 hours. Then a message appeared. I thought you were just helping Mom and Dad. I did not know they were telling you to cover things for me too. That was harder than I expected. Owen had been one of the people I resented most, because he always seemed to emerge from a crisis with clean hands. But he was also younger than me, and our parents had trained all of us into different roles. He was the one whose problems became urgent. I was the one whose capacity became invisible. The spreadsheet did not excuse him. It explained something. I called him that evening. We talked for 40 minutes. He admitted he had known about some of the payments, the car tires, the moving truck. A month of his phone bill after he lost a job. But he said Mom had framed them as things I wanted to do because I made more money and liked being in control. I never said that. I told him. I know that now, he said. The sentence should have made me feel better. It did not. It made me tired. We spoke about Pine Harbor. Owen had paid $300 toward the deposit. He thought Mom and Dad were covering the rest. Tessa had paid for her room. She thought the final balance was for extras and that I had offered because I was only coming for 2 days. The story had changed every time it moved through the family. That was how my money had become a rumor, not stolen in one dramatic moment, but reshaped through assumptions, omissions, and the comfort of people who did not ask enough questions because asking might have made them responsible. I went back to the spreadsheet and created a second tab called Questions Before Any Payment. Who requested this? What is the amount? What is the exact purpose? Who else is contributing? What repayment, if any, is expected? Where is the written confirmation? It looked like something from my job. Clean, structured, almost cold. But I knew it was not cold. It was the opposite. It was a way of protecting my future self from being pulled into somebody else's urgency before I had enough information to make a real choice. Mom called after dinner. Your father says we need to have a family meeting, she said, about the resort, about your attitude, about the way you sent that spreadsheet, about whether you want to be part of this family. The words landed softly, which somehow made them worse. I looked around my apartment. The lamp I had bought after saving for months. The bookshelf I had assembled alone. The calendar on the fridge with my own plans written in it. For years, I had believed belonging meant being reachable for every emergency. That night, I understood that some people call access love because it is easier than learning respect. I will meet, I told Mom, but I will not meet to be insulted. And I will not agree to any payment in the room. Dad's voice came on the line from somewhere nearby. You are bringing terms to your own parents now. No, I said. I am bringing boundaries. The family meeting was set for Wednesday at my parents' house. Before I went, I asked Pine Harbor for one more thing. I wanted the full payment communication attached to the reservation, including the messages that had been sent before I was copied. Leah hesitated. She told me she could not give me every private message, but she could confirm the dates and send anything that directly referred to me as a payment contact. What arrived was enough. There were 3 emails. The first was from Mom to the resort coordinator in February. Please reserve the larger package. My daughter Mara is very stable financially, and she will cover the final balance if needed. The second, 2 weeks later. Mara is not sure about the full week, but she always helps once she sees the kids are involved. Please keep the package as it is. The third was the one I had already read. Mara will cover the final amount. She always handles these things when the rest of us are stretched. I printed them and put them in a folder with the spreadsheet. Then I sat on the floor beside my coffee table and did something I had been avoiding. I let myself feel angry. Not the loud kind. Not the kind that makes you want to break a plate or send a message you cannot take back. The quieter anger that comes when you realize someone has been studying your softness, as if it were a resource. Mom knew I was not committed to the trip. She knew I had only agreed to my own share. She had made the reservation bigger anyway because she had decided that my guilt was reliable enough to cover the gap. That was not a misunderstanding. It was a plan. I had spent years giving my parents the benefit of the doubt because I loved them. I had thought that if I understood their stress, their fear, their pride, then I could explain away the way they treated me. But context is not consent. People can be worried and still be wrong. They can be family and still cross a line. They can love you in some ways and still build their comfort on your silence. At 6:15, Tessa called. Her voice was small. "Mom just told me you are bringing emails to the meeting. I am bringing records," I said. "She says you are trying to make her look like a villain." "I am not trying to make anyone look like anything." Tessa was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "I asked if you agreed to pay." She said you did. I closed my eyes. "I did not. I believe you," she said. That sentence did not fix anything, but it opened a door I had not expected. Tessa told me she had found another message in the family group chat from March. Mom had written, "Mara is handling the resort, so do not worry about your portion until later." Tessa had assumed I had volunteered. She had never asked me directly because she felt relieved. "I should have asked," she said. "Yes," I told her, "you should have." I did not say it cruelly. I said it because she needed to hear it without being protected from it. She cried a little, then asked whether she could come to the meeting. "It is your family too," I said. "You do not need my permission." After we hung up, I added one final sheet to the spreadsheet. I called it Authorization Trail. It listed every time someone had said I would pay, without a message from me agreeing to it. There were more than I expected. That was when I stopped thinking about the Pine Harbor balance as a single invoice. It was the visible edge of a family system that had been spending my reliability before I even knew there was a charge. On Wednesday afternoon, 2 hours before the meeting, Dad sent me a photo of a text message from Pine Harbor. Balance still outstanding. Reservation adjusted at 5 p.m. if payment is not received. Below the screenshot, he wrote, "This is on you." I stared at the words for a long time. "Was on me." That was the phrase my family had used whenever a problem became uncomfortable enough to require action. It was on me to pay, on me to fix the schedule, on me to call the office, on me to apologize first, on me to make peace, because I was supposedly better at handling things. But the resort balance was not on me. It had been created by a package Mom chose, with a number of rooms Dad approved, for adults who had all assumed someone else would make up the difference. I wrote back, "The reservation was adjusted because the people who made it did not collect payment from the people who benefited from it." Dad called immediately. "How dare you talk to me like that?" I put the phone on speaker while I packed the folder for the meeting. "I am not talking to you badly," I said. "I am describing what happened. You are trying to make your mother sick. I am asking you both to stop making financial plans around me without asking. You are making us look broke." "No," I said. "I am asking us to stop pretending that my account is the same thing as a family budget." He went quiet. Then he said something I had never heard from him before. "You think you are better than us because you work in an office and make spreadsheets." That hurt because it was so far from what I wanted. I did not want to be better. I wanted to be equal. I wanted a request to sound like a request. I wanted a no to be heard as a no. "I do not think I am better than you," I told him. "I think I am allowed to make choices about money I earn." Dad hung up. At 4:30, I checked the Pine Harbor portal. The package had been revised. One room was removed. The boat rental was cancelled. The catered dinner had been replaced with a restaurant reservation that each family would pay for separately. The trip was still happening. The children were not being punished. Nobody had lost a summer week. The only thing that had disappeared was the version of the trip that depended on me quietly carrying everyone else. That should have made me feel victorious. Instead, I felt sad. I had wanted to go to Pine Harbor when we first talked about it. I had imagined early mornings on the dock with coffee, my niece running down the path in a swimsuit, my brother grilling badly and pretending he meant to char everything. I wanted the uncomplicated family version of it. But the more I looked at the reservation, the more I saw that I had been invited only as long as I was useful to the plan. At 5:30, I drove to my parents' house with the folder on the passenger seat. I did not know whether I would come home with an apology, an argument, or nothing at all. But for the first time in my life, I was not going there to rescue anyone. I was going there to tell the truth, in a way that could not be talked around. My parents' house looked exactly the same as it had when I was a child. The porch light was on. The hydrangeas were too large for the front walk. Through the window, I could see Mom moving from the kitchen to the dining room with the fast, sharp steps she took when she was nervous. I sat in my car for a minute before going inside. Then I noticed something in the back seat, a small blue envelope I had received that morning from my bank. It was a notice about the automatic transfer I had set up for years earlier. Every month, on the 1st, $400 moved from my checking account into an account Mom had opened for family emergencies. I had agreed to it after Dad's work slowed down, because I wanted to make sure there was money for groceries or something truly urgent. I had forgotten how automatic it had become. $400 a month for years. $19,200. I opened the bank app and looked at the transfers. Then I looked at the account statements Mom had shared with me at the beginning, when she wanted me to feel included. The emergency account had not been used only for emergencies. There were restaurant charges, a spa gift card for Mom's birthday, 2 deposits to a party supply company, a subscription to a streaming service I did not use, a tuition payment for Owen's short certification course, several cash withdrawals with no notes. None of those purchases made my parents evil, but together they explained why the account was always low when something serious came up. The family fund had become another place where my money entered and other people's choices left. I printed the latest statement at a gas station printer on the way over. Then I added it to the folder. When I walked inside, everyone was already at the table. Dad was at the head, hands folded. Mom sat beside him, eyes red. Owen leaned against the counter with his arms crossed. Tessa was in the chair closest to the window. My Aunt Renee had come too, which I had not expected. "Why is Aunt Renee here?" I asked. Mom lifted her chin. "Because she is family." I almost laughed. It was the kind of thing my mother said when she wanted witnesses, not support. I took the empty chair at the far end of the table and put my folder down. Dad started before I could speak. "We are not doing this thing where you lecture everyone with numbers. Then you should not have asked me to pay a number," I said. Mom flinched. "Mara," she said, "we invited you here because we love you. We are concerned. You have become so guarded, so suspicious." I looked at her. For a second, I could see the mother who had braided my hair before school, who had stayed up with me when I had the flu, who had taught me how to fold towels the way she liked them. That was the hardest part. Love does not erase harm. Harm does not erase love. Sometimes both are sitting at the same table. "I am guarded because I have been paying for things I did not agree to," I said. Dad shook his head. "You have been helping your family. Helping is voluntary. This was not." I opened the folder. The first document on top was the Pine Harbor email. "Mom told the resort I would cover the final balance," I said. "I did not agree to that." Mom looked down. Dad said, "She knew you would help." That is not the same thing. I placed the bank statement beside the email. I also need to talk about the automatic family account. I have put $400 a month into it for years. I thought it was for emergencies. It has been used for things I was never told about. Aunt Renee looked at the statement, then at Mom. The room went very still. Dad stood up first. You went through your mother's account now. It is an account I fund, I said. I am an authorized viewer. That is not the point. It is the point when you ask me to cover another payment, while money I have already contributed is being spent without a plan. Mom reached for a tissue. The spa gift card was for my sister. She was going through a hard time. I did not know that. I did not think I had to explain every dollar to my daughter. That sentence held the whole history between us. No, she did not have to explain every dollar to me. But if my name, my transfers, and my reliability were being used to keep the account alive, then I deserved to know how it was being used. Not because I owned my parents. Because I needed to decide whether I wanted to keep participating. You do not have to explain every dollar, I said. You do have to stop treating my contribution like it belongs to you before you ask. Owen finally spoke. I did not know about the account, he said. Dad turned toward him. This is not about you. It kind of is, Owen replied. Mara paid for my course from that account, right? Mom was quiet. Yes, she said. You told me you paid for it from your savings. We did, Dad said. Family savings. Owen looked at me. His face changed in a way I recognized because I had felt it myself 100 times. The moment you realize a story you trusted was not entirely true, and now you have to decide what to do with the gap. Tessa pulled her phone from her bag. I found the message Mom sent about Pine Harbor, she said. She told the family Mara had agreed. Mom's eyes filled again. I thought she would. You did not ask her, Tessa said. Her voice was not angry. That made it stronger. Dad slammed his hand on the table. Not hard enough to break anything, but hard enough to make the silverware jump. Enough. We are not putting your mother on trial because Mara wants to keep score. I looked at him. I had spent most of my adult life trying to make him less disappointed in me. I had taken on bills, errands, phone calls, planning, and silence because I thought being useful would keep me safe inside the family, but I was not safe. I was just easy to use. I did not come to put anyone on trial, I said. I came because you told me the resort bill was my responsibility. It was not. I came because I need you to understand that the family account is no longer an open line connected to my checking account. And I came because I am done being told that the damage I notice is the damage I cause. Nobody spoke. I slid the spreadsheet toward the middle of the table. This is not a scorecard, I said. It is a record. It shows 47 payments over 6 years. Some were repaid, many were not. I am not asking for all of it back. I am not demanding an apology that you do not mean. I am changing what happens next. Dad laughed once, bitterly. And what happens next? I had practiced the answer in my car. The automatic transfer ends today. No one puts my name on a payment, account, or reservation without written permission. If someone needs help, they can ask me directly, tell me the amount and purpose, and accept no as an answer. Mom whispered, you would leave us with nothing. I looked around the room. At their house, at the food on the stove, at the adults sitting in chairs, each of them capable of making choices. I am not leaving you with nothing, I said. I am leaving you with your own decisions. Aunt Renee was the one who reached for the spreadsheet first. She did not make a speech. She adjusted her glasses, scanned the first page, then turned to Dad. Glenn, she said quietly, did Mara really pay the electric bill when you were working the Henderson job? Dad did not answer. And the truck repair. And the grocery delivery after Diane's surgery. Mom looked at the tablecloth. Aunt Renee went through the pages slowly. There were not dramatic secrets in them. Just ordinary charges and the phrases attached to them. Temporary. Just until Friday. Do not tell your sister. You know we would do it for you. I had written the words exactly as I had received them. After a few minutes, Renee looked at me. Why did you keep helping? It was the first question anyone had asked that week that was about me, instead of the bill. I thought about lying. I could have said because I loved them. That was true but incomplete. Because I thought if I said yes enough times, people would stop seeing me as selfish, I said. My throat tightened, but I kept going. I thought being needed was the same thing as being valued. Tessa started crying then. Owen looked away. Dad said, nobody called you selfish. I pulled a printed group chat screenshot from the folder and laid it beside the spreadsheet. It was from the year before, after I had declined to cover a hotel room for a cousin's wedding. Mom had written, Mara is making this harder than it has to be. She has money, but she always needs to prove a point. Beneath it, Dad had replied, she will come around. No one said anything for a long time. I did not enjoy putting the message on the table. I need to be honest about that. There was no thrill in it. There was only a strange, exhausted relief. For once, I was not arguing with a version of events that could change depending on who was telling it. The documented truth was there. Owen picked up the page and read it again. Mom, he said, why would you say she always needs to prove a point? Mom pressed the tissue to her mouth. I was frustrated, she said. I was embarrassed. So you made me the reason for that. I asked. She looked at me then. Really looked at me. Not as the daughter who could solve a problem, but as someone she had been speaking about when I was not there. I did not know how to ask for help, she said. Then you should have asked, I told her. You should not have decided for me. Dad sat back down slowly. The anger had left his face, but not because he agreed. I could see him trying to understand what he had lost control of. That was the thing about a family pattern. When one person stops doing their part, everybody else has to see the structure. He looked at the Pine Harbor invoice. What do you want us to do about the trip? It was almost funny. After all that, he still wanted a solution from me. Nothing, I said. It is already adjusted. Everyone pays for their own part. And if someone cannot, then they choose a version they can afford. My father frowned as if that answer were cruel. But it was not cruel. It was adult. The family trip would still happen. There would just be fewer rooms, fewer extras, no boat rental, and no invisible person carrying the gap. For the first time, I saw that the boundary was not destroying anything real. It was removing the illusion that love could be financed by one person without consequence. I left my parents' house just after 9. No one hugged me. No one stopped me at the door. Dad stayed at the table. Mom stood in the kitchen with her hands pressed to the counter. Owen walked me out, but did not say much until we reached the porch. I am sorry, he said, not just for the trip, for assuming. I nodded. Thank you for saying that. Do you want me to pay you back for the course? I looked at him. The old version of me would have said no immediately, because I wanted the moment to feel clean. But clean was not the same as honest. I want you to decide what you can repay and put it in writing, I said. Not tonight. Think about it. He nodded slowly. The next morning, I canceled the automatic transfer. The bank app asked whether I was sure. I sat with my thumb over the confirmation button for a full minute. $400 was not enough to solve every problem in my family, but it had been enough to keep me connected to a role I no longer wanted. Then I pressed confirm. I also sent a follow-up email to my parents and siblings. Subject: family financial boundaries going forward. I wrote that I loved them. I wrote that I was open to being asked for help in the future, but I would only consider requests that came directly to me. In writing, with the purpose, amount, deadline, and who else was contributing. I wrote that no one could use my email, name, card, account information, or job title to secure any payment, reservation, or service without my written consent. Then I added one final line: no response is not consent. I did not know whether anyone would read the email as a bridge or a punishment. I could only make it true. Mom called that evening. I let it go to voicemail, then listened after I had eaten dinner. Her message was shorter than the one before. "I read what you sent," she said. "I do not like how this feels, but I understand that I made assumptions. I am not ready to say more than that. It was not the apology I had wanted. It was not even close. But it was the first time she had used the word assumptions." I saved the voicemail, not because I wanted a record against her, because I was learning to notice when someone took a step, even a small one, toward the truth. A week later, Tessa sent me a screenshot of the Pine Harbor group chat. Mom had asked everyone to send their individual portion directly to the resort. There were no vague messages about Mara handling it. No reminders that I was good with money, just names, amounts, and deadlines. It was the smallest possible version of accountability, and it was more peaceful than any rescue I had ever performed. The weeks after the meeting were quieter than I expected. Not easy, quiet. Dad did not call for 13 days. That might not sound like much, but in our family it was a distance. Mom sent to practical messages about a birthday card and a recipe, then nothing else. Owen texted me a picture of a payment plan he had made for the course balance. It was modest. $50 every Friday, but it was his plan, and that mattered. Tessa asked whether I wanted to get coffee. We met at a small place near her apartment. She brought her laptop because she wanted help looking at her own budget. She had never tracked it before. She had assumed that if something went wrong, Mom or Dad would tell her what to do. "I do not want to do that anymore," she said. I did not lecture her. I showed her how I built categories: rent, groceries, childcare, transportation, savings, fun. We made a small emergency line that belonged to her, not to the whole family. When we were done, she looked relieved and scared at the same time. "Is this what you have been doing alone?" she asked. "Mostly," I said. She reached across the table and held my hand. "I am sorry you had to." That apology landed differently because it did not ask me to make her feel better. It named what had happened. Pine Harbor came and went. The trip was smaller. Owen said the kids barely noticed the difference. They swam, ate too much ice cream, and complained about sharing rooms. Dad sent one photo of the dock, then another of everyone sitting around a fire. I did not go. I had planned to spend 2 days there, but by the time July arrived, I understood I needed a summer that did not require me to arrive prepared to pay for peace. Instead, I took a long weekend in a nearby city with my friend Leela. We went to a museum, ate expensive pastries, and walked around without checking our phones every 10 minutes. No one asked me to solve a crisis. No one called me selfish for choosing what I could afford. On the second night, Leela asked if I missed my family. "Yes," I said, because I did. I missed the version of them I kept hoping would appear if I was useful enough. I missed the easy parts, the jokes, My mother, calling to tell me a story that could have been a text. My father, pretending not to be proud when I did something well. My siblings being kids beside me again. But missing someone does not mean you have to return to the role that hurt you. I was starting to learn that grief could be a form of clarity. A month after the dinner, I opened the old spreadsheet for the last time. 47 rows. The Pine Harbor invoice was still at the bottom, marked declined no authorization. I did not delete anything. I moved the file into a folder called Personal Records and closed it. Then I opened a new budget for myself. Not a family plan. Not an emergency account. Not a place where every dollar needed to be ready to become someone else's relief. Mine. I started with a small line item called Future Mara. It was not dramatic. It was simply money set aside for the things I wanted without having to explain them. A course I had been considering, a trip, a better mattress, a few days off when I was tired. The first deposit was $400, the amount that had been leaving my account every month, because I was afraid that saying no would make me less loved. That evening, Dad called. I almost did not answer. Then I did. "Hey," he said. "Hey." For a moment, neither of us spoke. "Your mother says you are not coming Sunday," he said. "Not this week. Are you still mad?" I looked out my window at the light, fading over the street. "I am not trying to punish anyone," I said. "I am trying to build a different relationship with all of you." He was quiet. "I do not know what that looks like," he admitted. It was not an apology, but it was the first question he had asked that did not come with a bill attached. "It looks like asking," I said. "It looks like believing my no the first time. It looks like not calling me difficult because I want something in writing." He breathed out slowly. "Okay," he said. Was all. But I had learned not to make a whole future out of one word. I wrote it down in my mind, not as proof of change, but as a beginning I would watch with care. The spreadsheet did not destroy my family. It did not turn anyone into a villain or make me a hero. What it did was end a story we had all been telling, that I was loved because I was useful, and that every cost became mine if I noticed it first. I was still their daughter, still Owen's sister, still Tessa's sister. But I was no longer the account they could spend without asking. And for the first time in years, the quiet that followed did not feel like abandonment. It felt like peace. There was dignity in finally being allowed to choose what peace cost.